Dave Coker from the University of South Wales. Can we please firstly see your fabulous shirt? You just lifted up the full. There it is.
There we
Look at
go.
that. There you
Lovely.
go. Cerddoriaeth a Sain, music and sound. University of South Wales. There we are. So the game's given away straight away. So, firstly, Dave, what do you do at university? What's your role? What's your role here?
I'm a lecturer in popular and commercial music, and I primarily teach two modules. One which is professional performance, but the main one I do is called the creative musician, and this is to try and get students to develop a kind of different way of writing songs, which is using the technology to write the songs. So that instead of your conventional, Bob Dylan way of picking up a guitar and writing a song, it's like using the technology, using different techniques to create interesting and innovative like pop music.
So that's interesting to me straight away, because you can probably see behind me, I do kind of write from that Bob Dylan way, if you like, with a guitar and a voice and, traditional kind of working out arrangements and lyrics and stuff. So what's kind of an example of a starting point of doing that in a different way? Are you talking about sort of loops and beats and stuff?
Yeah, well, on my first lecture, what I do is I compare the Beatles, like She Loves You, to Public Enemy, Fight the Power.
Right.
And they're two completely different ways of writing songs. One was written in Paul McCartney's dad's or granddad's living room, and they used to write on the tour bus and stuff like that. Whereas if you look at Fight the Power by Public Enemy, which is the real international breakthrough, big hip hop worldwide hit for them, and sort of really moved hip hop into sort of the mainstream. It was all done using breakbeats taken from records, samplers, drum machines, and it was building the song layer on layer on layer on layer with an incredibly dense, thick layer of loops and complicated, scratch derived beats and things like that. So it's just basically to try and show you that if you know how to use technology correctly, you can be just as creative and innovative as someone who's just sitting in front of a piano or a guitar with a guitar in their hand.
Okay, well that's a personal note for me, which I shall take into account. Listening to some of the stuff on the Create Sampler album, which we're here to talk about, which is officially released today, I think, on the 12th of June. But will have kind of an impact for a period of time yet. It's a vinyl album, which is great to see. And tell me a little bit about the kind of because firstly to say, when you're talking about kind of breakbeats and hip hop, and there's such a variety of music on that album. It's kind of everything really, and which is great.
Well, there's two artists in particular. You have Wade, who's a really kind of like fantastically angry, aggressive kind of modern day rapper, and he's got this fantastic sort of like energy, and he's one of those guys that he's not going to pick up a guitar, he's going to make beats on his computer, and that's what he does, and there's a great example of that on the album. And there's also Hannah Clemenshaw. She's got this lovely kind of sort of hippie kind of like dynamic meeting with sort of like modern urban beats. That's kind of which I love that as well. So there's a couple of examples of that sort of that approach to songwriting on the album.
What's the heritage with the Create Sampler? Because it's been going for a couple of years now, hasn't it?
This is volume 3. I've been involved in the last two, so volume 2 and volume 3. I've been working with my popular and commercial music students. With it, what we do is we run the assessment for the creative musician module, so that the summative 2 finished songs runs concurrently with the sort of shortlisting for the Create project. So you get this nice synergy between a bit of it, industry realistic deadlines, etc. And also there is a, rather than just getting a grade, there is a goal, there is an artifact that you could possibly be involved in at the end. So it's a great way of teaching theory, but keeping it industry realistic at the same time.
Yeah, I think it's a really great model. I always love the idea of with students pretty well on anything where they actually create an artifact. It's just not, it never is going to be in music, but sometimes it can be in other territories, just a bunch of words on a page, That's
yeah.
fine, value, but it's really nice when they create an artifact which kind of lives and breathes, you know.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know if you saw the sort of the Gradfest launch video. There was a short interview that I did then.
No, I
Uh,
didn't.
well,
Sorry, I need to.
yeah.
Sorry.
Well, I can explain what I meant. What I said in that interview was basically, I'm from a generation, and I believe you guys are as well, where your entry level to the sort of that magic world of pop music was vinyl, was the physical artifact. You know, the fact of finding the album. You know, you buy it, you open it, you feel it, you can smell, you smell it, you read the sleeve notes, you even look at the grooves, and you watch what the engineer has cut into it. You know, all that kind of thing
Yeah,
has been lost from pop music until
yeah,
quite recently, and it's this wonderful like vinyl kind of revival, it's the physicality of it. And also it sounds great as well, you know. So
yeah,
um, that's why I like about it. I like it. It gives a physical, you know, thing, and it's also my when I was working my way up through the music industry, my absolute dream was to have my own record with my work on it.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And when I got that in my hand for the first time, it was really something special, you know.
Yes. Many years ago, in the dark old days when, you know, I think it was street lighting, I can't quite remember. I had a small record deal, and I went to the plant. It was in the glamorous place, which David Brent is very fond of, a place called Slough. But I went to the record plant and actually saw the record being kind of, you know,
Yeah,
mastered, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
fantastic. You know, it sticks with me even now. You know, it's just beautiful seeing that happen. So I totally get the appeal of vinyl.
yeah.
The idea with it, I suppose, for the bands as well. What I also like about it, I know Tony would as well, because of what we kind of do with the site, is the way that it works as a promotional showcase for these acts, which they
Yeah.
can share hither and kind of thither. You know, I mean, has there been any kind of bands over the last couple of years who've started to sort of make some impact, do you know, as a part, as a process of being on the albums?
But Boy Azuga obviously is
Of
like one of the
course, yeah,
yeah. He's kind of like his career's been has obviously gone in the right, you know, the right trajectory, you know, and he's a fabulous guy as well. I've met him quite a few times now, and he's such a I think I think this has been a very small part of his, you know, career path, you know, into that kind of sort of like recognition within the industry. And obviously you have Adwyth as well, you know. It's a real shame actually, just before the corona pandemic happened, they were heading for off to Americas for you know, to do festivals and
uh,
stuff like that, you know.
yeah,
So but so yeah, so there's two classic examples of it. You know, it's I think as a project, it is in early days, and once we get it established over the next few years, I think it will be a real touchstone thing for the students of the University of South Wales. You know, get yourself on this. This is how you get out there into the ether and get yourself well known. You know.
I mean, some of the acts who, thanks to you, by the way, largely have been getting in touch with us, because what we're trying to do to keep Cardiff live, like we did with the CMF festival, is to have a kind of standalone page, I suppose, on the site, which is, you know, promoting the acts, ideally featuring things like biogs from the bands, maybe links to short video clips. If
Yeah.
you have any stuff, the kind of session stuff they want to share, and imagery. You know, people just want to see these guys, and of course we'll follow that up with some interviews for that as well, which
That'd
would
be
be
great.
great.
That'd be great. Yeah.
And I'm thinking of, from the band's perspective, and I know you know, as a musician, you've been around the block sort of thing. The bit where you actually have to get out there and be interviewed, and you have to sort of, you know, think about what you're going to say and how you're going to present yourself and what you want to promote. I mean, that's quite important as well. Possibly even more so now with the way the music industry is, that bands
Yeah.
need to know how to present themselves, Dave.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a fantastic example of that. One of the modules that I teach is professional performance, which is all about developing, you know, your imagery, how you present yourself, improvisation. It teaches you how you use technology in live performance, all those things which kind of the process of modern live music, how it is perceived and how it is delivered. And obviously, because of the pandemic, the ensemble part of that sort of disappeared, because obviously nobody could be in the same space with each other. However, what we did was we developed this culture and community, which was where the students had to learn how to use video editing software. They had to learn about how to frame their performances using their camera or their laptop, the use of lighting. They had to learn the discipline of basic video editing, and it's remarkable what they came up with.
Mm.
And what we kind of like loved about it is that developing content for your fans right from the very beginning is incredibly important now. And you see bands like 21 Pilots, they produce literally loads of videos by themselves, and it provides content for fans, and fans love it, because
Yeah,
fans interact so much more
that's
literally
right.
now with artists online. So in developing this sort of kind of challenge from the pandemic turned into a massive creative blossoming amongst the students. They're now learning to create content and promotional content themselves rather than it being financed by a record company. And when they do start developing fan bases, they will have this ability so that they can communicate with their fans. And when you think that a lot of revenue now comes from live performance, if you can give fans these little snippets and these little kind of like little impromptu like performances to a high production value visually and from an audio point of view, you are already on that road to developing a strong fan base.
Maybe Tony would like to respond to that, because I'm thinking of you in terms of the website, which is all about Cardiff and it's all about music. And here we are, talking about the atrium in the capital city of Wales, and about content and about, what people like to consume.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was great what you just said. It's exactly the same lines of what we've been thinking in terms of, I think with the lockdown, I mean, it's a terrible situation for most people, but what it's forced people to do is to look at things in a different perspective. And, what you're saying about them creating their own content, I mean, that's what I'm trying to be encouraging people to do, is to become their own sort of entrepreneurs as well. I mean, for people to learn that music is a very different platform nowadays to sort of the generation we grew up with. Although I do love your passion about vinyl, and I have that same sort of passion as well. I think if you mention Porky's Prime Cuts, people would think, well, what are you on about? But I remember reading out off the center of the vinyl, little things like that that trigger those great sort of things about vinyl. It's brilliant that you're doing that and you're doing the vinyl. But from a digital point of view, we can help as well, and we can put the music on from a digital point of view, or we can help the sale of the album is another thing that we can do.
Yeah.
But I do think that the point is that you're getting something over there which is so important nowadays, that it has to be multi-mediums, multi-format. It has to be creative. Has to be inventive, and Keep Cardiff Live is about that as well. That's where we want the content to be, and we want to encourage students and people outside of the university as well to do that, and that's what we're a platform for as well.
That's fantastic.
Dave, just to say, I mean, I don't know whether this is the case or not. Will any of the bands who are on the album, will they also therefore have created visual content with you that they might be able to share through Tony's site?
Yes, they would have done, because some of them had to do it for the grad show.
Yeah.
And some of them did it actually for their performance assessment. So I can definitely try and facilitate that so that you can have some of that content. Obviously Lucy at the school, she's got all that for the grad show stuff. So, and there are 10 different performances, acoustic performances, of all the different acts on the and artists and solo artists on the vinyl. So with that content is already there.
So Tony, I'm guessing, not to put words in your mouth, but that kind of stuff you would showcase that on your site quite happily, wouldn't you?
Absolutely, yeah. That's what we're about. I mean, it's interesting, it's new, it's creative. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly the sort of material we're looking for.
Yeah, and people like you say, I mean, I know it's so obvious, but it becomes more and more obvious. People like to see stuff. People like to watch stuff. They want to see things that move sometimes. That kind of stuff.
I also think it's the direct to fan content that hasn't gone through the filter of the music industry, where there's that level of polishing and smoke and mirrors and marketing and stuff. This is why I keep going back to 21 Pilots. They do all these great little vids which are just made by them and edited by them and are delivered directly to their fans. So that's the modern way, you know, and there's an intimacy there as well, you know, with your fan base. And that's why 21 Pilots have probably one of the most fiercely loyal fan bases in the United States, you know. It's that kind of content. That's the modern way. That's the future of the music industry is direct contact with your fans and developing your fan base by learning these kind of skills, you know.
I want to ask you a couple of other things, David. One of them is about the kind of competitive nature of getting onto this album, because it weren't just those 15 acts, there were a lot more than that, weren't there?
Yeah, and there's about 50 submissions, and I can tell you now the competition wasn't just amongst the students; it was amongst the different different tutors and lecturers.
Oh yeah, advocating for their acts, sort of thing.
Yeah. There's quite. I think there was quite a lot of biased voting going on in some respect. But it's all good fun. It's all good natured, and you know, I think the quality in the end. The quality will out, and the best tracks ended up on the album. There's a couple I was a bit disappointed that didn't get on, but there's the panel of people that choose it is quite widespread across the whole music and sound school. So there's a great diversity of subjective opinion as well as sort of a objective kind of like opinion too. So it is competitive, and I think it's good for the students that they have that kind of that industry kind of fire and ambition in their body, that this is industry light. When you go out through the doors, it gets a lot more competitive and a lot more kind of brutal. So it's good that there's a little element of industry realism there, I think.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to ask you. I'm looking behind you on the wall. There seems some very interesting pictures going on there. Maybe tell us a little bit, maybe one or two, what kind of things find on, what's found on David Coker's wall?
Okay, what's on my wall? Okay. Well, I'm a pop icon kind of guy, and you see that? That's the kind of Girl on a Motorcycle, which is a kind of Marianne Faithfull film from the 60s.
Lovely.
Poster of that.
Great poster.
Well, I can show you a few others. Okay. I got this, which I love. This is a great picture of the young John McEnroe in a sort of Irish.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Irish rugby shirt. I found that in an auction in Ibiza for £5.
Wow! Have you read his book?
Yeah, I love him. I absolutely love him. Yeah. And what else have I got? I got one more. I'll show you one more. This one here. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the late King of Thailand, who was a great fan of jazz.
Wow.
Played with Louis Armstrong and all sorts of people. Benny Goodman and people like that. And this is a great photograph of him playing trumpet.
How did you come across that one then? Was that in some charity shop you were lucky, or no?
No, I used to work in the music industry in the Far East for about 6 years. Okay. And so I was based in Bangkok and amongst other places, and they had lots of photographs of the King playing. He was a great music enthusiast.
Wow. Okay.
So loads of pictures of him, like, playing with different musicians. And he might have also got Steve McQueen on the wall from Great Escape.
Yeah.
See that? I mean, just to say that is what I really love about that exchange there was not only your enthusiasm for your stuff, but also that physicality, which which we're talking about with this vinyl album, which has stuff on it that you can see and hear and smell and feel, it just makes all the difference.
Yeah, well, I think it's I'm a complete nerd when it comes to sort of
well done.
Pop culture in general.
Good
so
man. Yeah.
I try and let things outside music influence what I do, and also I try and bring that into how I teach the students about songwriting. It's not just about, there are things like politics, there are things like distortion, there are things like the human condition. There are all sorts of things that should feed into your songwriting, and I think we have such an amazing pop culture in this country in particular. There are. Who's to say you can't write a pop song about a film that you love? Who's to say you can't write a pop song about a political issue that's burning in your in your heart. You know, there is so much to feed on, and I'm a real fan of pop culture, so hence all the mad pictures.
That's beautiful, beautiful stuff. Beautiful. I wish my bedroom wall was as good as that. But Dave, just to say, the Create Vinyl Sampler. If people want to find out more about it, or they want to trying to get a hold of a copy, I think there's a small amount being run off physically. It's difficult at the moment, of course, with where we're at. But what's the idea in that in terms of getting it out there?
The album will be available as a physical artifact through Spillers, is that right? The record.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the first outlet will be. Hopefully, that'll be open again soon. So
exactly.
That's where you'll get it. Regards to, I think initially that's where it's going to be. What happens as it rolls out, who knows at the moment. But we will be looking into ways of distributing it in a wider sense.
And Tony, I don't know whether you wanted to respond on that in terms of how you could share it. And before you answer that, David, I'm sure we'd love to interview again about you and
definitely.
your career. By the way,
Oh, okay. Listen, I can talk all day about me, and I've got a lot to talk about. I tell you.
Yeah, I think one of the things we have mentioned is possibly trying to sell the album through the website as well. So I think it's just in discussions at the moment. So there's nothing sort of hard and fast about that at the moment. But we'd love to do that. We'd love to help out, and I think it'd be great to have an online sort of point as well. I mean, Spillers is fantastic. They're the shop that it should be in, definitely. But if from an online point of view, it'd be brilliant for us to do it as well. So we watch this space basically.
Okay, brilliant.
David, keep on encouraging the bands to send stuff through. We'll interview some of them, and Tony's going to capture anything, pictures, videos, session tracks, whatever. Let's get them on there.
I can get Lucy to send you all these performances of the individual songs by the individual artists. I will get her to send you through that stuff.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
And I'm slightly embarrassed that we've not actually ever shaken hands and had a coffee or whatever, but that will come over time. And well done for doing it. It's brilliant stuff. And thanks a lot, David.
No, my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Real pleasure to meet you. Thank you very much. Cheers.